Hey guys, this is Brianna Reynolds, and I'm here to teach you nuke particles. Alright, so to get started, I wanted to go over some of the main nodes that we need to be using in nuke. It's a bit different than any Houdini or Maya project that we have done, just because it's not as nuke isn't made for particles. It's mainly used for compositing, but compositors do use particles in here to create like fast dynamic effects if they need something like in the background, but nothing ever like movie quality particles are ever going to come out of nuke. Also, it's mainly going to be like snow or like smoke, nothing too crazy with like rendering time, so you won't be seeing like your 10-hour renders. Alright, so the main particle nodes are, I put them in a little box for us. Now, in this green thing right, in the green backdrop right here is our #1 source of emitter, the particle emitter, and this will be the driver for every particle that you would do in nuke. Has 3 inputs: the particle, the emit, and the merge. The particle is what you will be emitting, like, okay, that was confusing. The particle will be like what is seen, that will be dynamically forced out of what is the emission. And then in the emit, you can plug in like a sphere or a plane, and it will emit like any Houdini or Maya particles from it. And then from here, you have your particle cache and your write-out node. Your particle cache is just like any cache in Maya or Houdini, where we're going to store our data or sim so that we are able to have the calculations stored so that when we render, and per se if it crashes, we have that backed up. Alright, and here are some of the main nodes right here. We're not going to go through all of them just because of time reasons, but we have particle curve. This basically allows us to do a difference in opacity as well as size. We can put keys on them to basically, let's say an example, we want something to dissipate like smoke. Then we can have a ramp value almost that once it hits a certain distance or value, that it will start to fade away, and that's what the curve is for. The curve will be an animated feature that will allow you to visually see the attributes. And then the particle bounce, that will be used to, if you want to do rain, or if you want to do like bouncing like beach balls or tennis balls or something like that. You're able to, just like rigid bodies, have a surface interact with the particles so that it's not just floating out in space. And here are some more: particle drag, particle expression, settings, speed limit, and these are all on Nuke's website too. I'm not going to go through all of them today, but I just want to let you guys see what all the particles that are needed to create an effect. The forces we will be using today, though, just like anything in Houdini and Maya, will have dynamics such as wind, gravity, vortex, turbulence, and they have a like specific particle direction node. It's not as efficient as like Maya with accessibility, but it does do some cool things. So the first thing I wanted to show you guys is setting up in the 3D render view. So we're going to go up to 3D. We're just going to view the particles here for a second. Drag this down. There we go. Alrighty. So images in Geo. This is what you can bring in. You can bring in any type of image you want. If you want it to be an alpha, like we'll view this real quick. If you want this to be like just a target or something, then Nuke will accept that with TIFF targets and PNGs. You will have to set up the alpha though to it, so that when you emit it, and I'll show you right here. Alright, now it has it up to the spheres, and I won't do the particle. So this is the particle input right here, and this is what we want to emit from our object. Go ahead and do this. I'm just gonna take the size up real quick. Sorry for the passing plane. Alright, so you see, so the particles are now our images, and you can input anything you want, bring in, as well as like if you want to do just a geometry that's in Nuke, you just do like a sphere, and then it will emit that way, and you can see just going. Or if you want to bring in any FBX or OBJ from files that you've created in Maya or any other 3D software, you're able to do that as well. I haven't experienced yet with dense models with how compatible Nuke is with handling such divisions, but it wouldn't hurt to try. I'm sure it's like any other program where too much can crash the system. Alright, so now we'll go down to the emitter and the emission geo. The emission geo is basically what shape is emitting your object. So right here I have like a couple options of like a sphere or card. We'll go ahead and view those. I seem to have broke my mouse. There we go. Okay, so here's the sphere. I kind of got lost because we're emitting spheres, so I'm going to actually go back to the image so that I know which one's the emitter and which one's the particles. So I'm just going to take that out real quick and put in the particles. There we go. Alright, so now we can see that this sphere right now, which is what I have input in the emitter, is what is emitting our particles. So I got a little example. And by the way, these particles are sprites. If it is a 2D image, wherever your camera goes, the particles will face towards the camera. And since it's in 3D space, like it will correlate with size and perspective, getting closer and further away. So we'll go into the particle emitter. And here is basically where like all your main attributes are, between like your velocity, your max lifetime. If you want to make it spread out more, go into more of a direction, change the color, all these attributes. I'm going to go through a few, not all of them, just because there's so many in such a little time. Alright, so we're going to go through the spread first. So say if you don't like the emission rate of this, you can go down to spread, and it's kind of just like a randomization, and you can't really see much of it because there's not a lot of emission rate. So if we crank this up, actually, say like 10, like you can see like it will get crazy amounts of emission. Alright, so now if we go to spread, you can see that it randomizes a lot more. And this is for, you can also animate this or animate any of these attributes really if you want to go ahead and like do a snow effect, or I don't know, per se, like smoke, whatever you guys want to do. So that's down there. And then velocity is how fast your emission rate will go. And I mean, these are all just like Maya, just like Houdini that we've learned. I mean, different program, but same concepts. So it'll go a lot slower, but it's more denser. And the reason why it's dissipating so shortly now is because of the where is it at? Of the lifetime. Let me find. Say you don't want it to emit at a certain point, or you don't want it to emit at the start. You want it to already be in cycle before you even per se like render out your sequence. You can go to the start at, and if you put a negative number, like I don't know, let's just say like -10, then at frame 1 it would already be at -10, so you don't have to like wait all the way to go. Alright, max lifetime. Okay, here it is, max lifetime. So basically the max lifetime, what it's doing is that it's giving it 600 frames before these particles on the ends will die off, the ones that are furthest away in the first of emission. Cool. Alrighty, and we'll move on to the forces now. We'll go through a couple more of these as I show you more things, but let's go on to gravity. So gravity basically is, gravity will, instead of spreading out like what the particle forces did, I mean not the particle force, the particle emitter, instead of spreading out in the shape of the sphere, it's just gonna act as gravity and force it downwards. So basically, emission, and I can't really see the bottom right now because I have it at like 600 birth decay, but you can definitely see that now you're able to simulate like snow, rain, in a downward force, and so it's not just everywhere and uncontrolled. So we'll go into the gravity attribute, and you can actually put a you could do it in Maya as well, but I haven't really seen it much done. Just like a little bit of X, and you can actually give it a directional force, so you can manipulate the gravitational forces as into like, I don't know, like a fire spraying out of a I don't even know, or sorry, like a water out of a hose, say that, but you probably wouldn't want to do water in here because it's not gonna look too good unless it's like stylized. Alright, so we're gonna bring that back down actually, so that we have it shooting downwards in a regular gravitational pull. And now we're going to turn the bounce from, and the bounce, like I told you guys over here in the attribute that I explained, is basically kind of like rigid bodies and Maya or Houdini, where that we can, it's limited on what you can make object-wise, like in the attribute as default, but you can plug in your own geometry. So if you wanted to go like take a regular sphere, let's do something where sphere or cube or whatever primitive you guys want to pull through. I'll show this, and the reason why it looks like a bowl almost is because in the particle thing I have sphere on, but if I turn plane on, you're able to see now that, and I can put it down a little bit more so that gravitational is able to fall a bit before hitting the surface. So I'm going to do that real quick. Particles. If I go translate Y and I go down with it, just like give me a good big number here, 10. There we go. Alright, so now you see that the water, or whatever you might be, or all the PNGs of 4-leaf clovers are falling onto the thing, and I have actually an animation on it, so it's going back and forth. But basically, like, I don't know, you could do like water hitting a like moving object, or a roof or something, but a roof wouldn't be spinning. and that is just by setting